Good morning. Welcome to our BenBinFro Thought for the Day. On this day in the church calendar, we celebrate the Annunciation of our Lord to the Blessed Virgin Mary. This feast day has us thinking of Mary and Gabriel's encountering one another, and Mary's life never being the same again. In our reading today, Samuel has been given to the Lord for the rest of his life by his mother Hannah. As it records a few verses back in chapter 1, Hannah says, "I prayed for this child, and the Lord gave me what I asked of him. So I now give him to the Lord for all the days that he lives." Our reading is from 1 Samuel 2, starting at the first verse. Then Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is none besides you. There is no rock like our God. Do not keep talking so proudly, or let your mouth speak such arrogance. For the Lord is a God who knows, and by him deeds are weighed. The bows of the warrior are broken, but those who stumbled are armed with strength. Those who were full hire themselves out for food, but those who are hungry hunger no more. She who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who has many sons pines away. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. For the foundation of the earth are the Lord's. Upon them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of the saints, but the wicked will be silenced in darkness. It is not by strength that one prevails. Those who oppose the Lord will be shattered. He will thunder against them from heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. What an amazing act for a woman who had struggled in the first place to have children. And she had struggled with Peninnah, Elkanah's other wife, gloating over her own family while she was barren. It's not surprising that Hannah has some praise to offer in the light of what God has been doing in her life. One significance of this act of praise is that it brings to its proper closure the interaction between her and God over her infertility. When one has a crisis, the way that life with God works is that firstly you bring it to God and urge God to do something about it. Secondly, God makes a commitment to you to do something about it. You are then meant to respond with trust and praise, and then God does act. The sequence does not actually reach completion and closure until you come back to God, to give thanks to God, and to do so publicly in order that people join you in your prayers and have their own trust in God and commitment to God built up. This is an important aspect of Hannah's visit to the sanctuary. Her visit involved personal thanksgiving and praise. What God has done for her and makes possible to her to confirm is that there is no one apart from you. But interesting, yet the bulk of her praise is not addressed to God. It speaks about God in the third person. It is addressed to God. It is thanksgiving. But in its nature, as speaking about God, it is testimony. Gratitude for what God has done is not complete until one tells other people about what God has done. Hannah's opening words to Eli naturally take the form of words about God, not words to God, and they take the characteristic form of thanksgiving. They tell her story. It was for this boy that I pleaded. and Yahweh gave me what I asked of him. When we have a prayer answered, we need to recount what God has done. You assume it's an indication and confirmation of God's character and his characteristic way of acting. This is why it's significant for other people's relationship with God. Hannah emboldens other infertile women to come and plead with God. What is surprising is that a poem of praise does not obviously relate in any way to God's opening and closing of Hannah's womb. Her praise seems to relate to political rather than to personal, and to her people rather than merely to Hannah herself. Hannah's song is also a prophecy, rather like Miriam's song in Exodus 15. Being a prophecy becomes explicit in the last line, lifting up the horn in the way an animal such as a bull does. Bull does is an image of great strength. God will lift up the horn of his anointed. In this context, we don't yet know who Hannah might be referring to. But in a few chapters' time, Samuel does indeed anoint Saul, and then later, when David, with his much greater achievements, is anointed, we realize how far Hannah's prophecy pointed. Kings were to rise and fall, so we can see there's an interaction between divine initiative and human response. It is entirely possible to mess up the initiative that God sets going. Fortunately, God does not give up on us, but thinks of another initiative. God promises to all of us, whatever our gender or infertility status, or how we've messed up in life, he promises a deeper and more fluent creativity, that a new truth can grow within us. And our humanity is essential in the process of bringing this new future to birth. Let us all use this difficult and forced time of quiet to both plead with and to encounter the living God. May your life be transformed by this encounter.